everyone. If we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Worcester Police Department Citizen Academy graduation. Congratulations to everyone here. Before we get started, I'd just like to make some introductions. I know you know who they are, but we have Chief Saucier, City Manager Batista, District Attorney Joe Early, Lieutenant Donna Brissett from the Training Division, Lieutenant Sean Murtha, Deputy Chief Ed McGinn, and we have my training staff in the back, and with Officer Casey Anibal. I want to give a little shout out to my academy, my training division, my staff. They work very hard in training, led by Donna Brissett here. They were part of this academy, and on top of that, they're also working, training and teaching at the Worcester Police Academy. We have a class in now. We're in week 5, and they're working hard teaching those new student officers that will become Worcester police officers. And on top of that, they also training our existing officers with in-service training. So it's constantly, they love to train the police officers. I'm very lucky to have them. They make my job very easy. I want to give a shout out to Paul Letourneau, who came here every week. He did all the housekeeping. He made sure all the instructors were here as scheduled, and I'm sure he entertained you along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Officer Casey Anibal.
Yeah.
Every week. Casey is part of our diversity and recruitment team. He works out of the chief's office. He works very hard trying to get us new candidates for our upcoming academy classes. I don't know if you know this, but the police departments across the nation have a recruitment and a retention problem. And all you have to do is look on 290 where Boston Police bought a billboard that says, "Become a Boston police officer." I don't know if anyone has seen that. So now they're coming from Suffolk County to Worcester County to try to get our candidates. Despite the negativity in the media with law enforcement, it's a pretty good job. You get to help a lot of people, and it's a good feeling. It's really rewarding. And I would hope after this experience here that you will spread the word and tell people that to take this civil service test. We have one next month in March. We have one every year now. Every March there's a civil service test. We need candidates. When I first came on, the civil service test was every 2 years. Candidates lined out outside Doherty Memorial High School along Highland Street. Thousands took this test. Today, it's only hundreds. So we need more good candidates. Now, for the class of 2024, again, congratulations. You took 10 weeks out of your busy lives to come here 3 hours a week. That says a lot about you. It says you're good citizens and you care about this city. And you care about the police department, and you want to know, you want to learn about this police department and what they do. I live in the city, I was born and raised here, and I care about this city. And I feel I have a good quality of life, and I feel safe in this city. So thank you. Thank you for coming for these 10 weeks. Now, doing these 10 weeks, you ended up having about 30 police officers that taught you out of 20 units in this Worcester Police Department. A department with over 450 police officers. So you took a lot and you learned a lot. You had communication division here. That's where all the calls originate from. Over 100,000 calls are placed that the Worcester Police Department responds to every year. Last week you had the animal control officers here. And I'm sure some of you didn't even know we had an animal control unit. We have 3 full-time animal control officers. You wouldn't know we had one unless you had a problem. If you had a moose or bear in your yard. Yep. Or if you had an injured animal near a playground. They do a great job and we're lucky to have them. You also heard from our stress unit and also from the DA's office where criminal cases are adjudicated. And then you have some interesting topics like use of force. And that's always a tough subject matter to teach in front of civilians. And you followed that up with the Milo simulation training, where you had an opportunity for scenario-based training to shoot or not shoot. Let me tell you, as a police officer, we don't want to use force, but it's part of the job. And you got a Reader's Digest version of use of force. Our officers now, in this police academy, they go through hundreds of hours of use of force. And they learn about defensive tactics, how to use all their police implements, and how to de-escalate. That's the new buzzword now, de-escalation. Since the police reform law in 2020, de-escalation, where you slow down situations and you stabilize situations. We always did that in the Worcester Police Department, but we never called it that. So we try to de-escalate, and when necessary, we use reasonable and necessary force. And the reason why we put so much time into this use of force is our officers do not want to become statistics. Last year, 378 officers around the country here were shot. There was over 100 ambush-style attacks against police officers. That's where they set you up on a call. We need to make sure our officers go home safely every night. Our academy class will go through almost 1,000 hours of training. They'll graduate after 6 months, and our graduation's June 27th this year. It's a community event. It's up at Worcester Tech, and you're all invited. Get to know the Worcester police officers, the 30 that's in the class now, who will be patrolling our streets. After they graduate, they become police officers in June. They have an additional 500 hours out in the field with a field training officer. There are various officers that will train them on the job training. And they'll go through just to see how, to meet the people of Worcester and go through the calls. And I suggested to the chief that next year we should have maybe 3 or 4 more citizen academies. And it's not because I'll be retired. Seriously, I believe it is a good program and it's a good partnership. It's not a safe city unless we have this partnership. So again, congratulations and thank you.
We're going to be sad when Jerry Captain O'Rourke retires next year. When is this?
Next January.
Next January. But to echo Captain O'Rourke, I want to thank everybody for being here. This is a huge commitment. Wednesday nights, 2.5, 3 hours, whatever it was. I know Paul Turner wanted to go extra hours, but we had to kind of talk him down. But I'm hoping everybody learned about police procedure and what we do, and more importantly, that we're human. We're all the same. We're just like you, right? We all have families we want to go home to. We have the same problems everyone else has. We just may have a different job or career choice, but it's all about communication, as the captain said, and we're hoping that you learn from us, but we also learn from you. So the more times we can get together informally like this, the better. And I'm also hoping that you tell other people that your loved ones, family, friends, of what you experienced here, and for them to come to the next one. Because again, it's all about learning. And I know there's some very spirited conversations, and that's what this is all about. It wouldn't have been good if you guys didn't have those questions. And that's what we're here to answer. But I'd also like to thank the Academy staff. They did a great job. They have a tough job. And as the captain said, when they're training recruits, that's like their kids. They want to make sure they go out there and that they're safe and that they perform correctly on the job. So I'm going to end it there. I'd like to now introduce the city manager, Eric Batista.
So I had this fancy speech, but I'm just going to share my personal thoughts. One, first of all, congratulations for achieving and being part of this civilian academy. Like it was said earlier, 10 weeks. That's a long time. To be able to commit yourselves to come in and be part of this and learn and really understand what the police department is all about. There's a lot that goes into patrolling our streets, and there's a lot that they're responsible for. A lot of our lives are in their hands in terms of the day-to-day safety, right? But at the same time, right, not only do we expect a lot out of them, but they also expect a lot out of us in terms of us as citizens and residents of this community. And there's a lot that's put on them, whether there's laws and policies and behaviors and things that they need to understand and know on a day-to-day basis to be able to patrol our cities and keep our cities safe. And I had a first chance, like many of you had, and many of you will, of doing a ride-along. Who did a ride-along? Okay. Who hasn't done a ride-along yet? All right. So I had a chance to do a ride-along in 2016. I was part of the Leadership Worcester cohort here in the city of Worcester, and I had a chance to do a ride-along. So now I've worked in the city since 2012, and I've interacted and worked with many of the officers here. And the day that I had to do the ride-along, it was actually not a bad timing. It was actually during the day. The nighttime probably would have been a lot tougher, but I did the day, and I remember the moment when I had to sign a release and put on my bulletproof vest, and I was like, okay, this is real. And then you get in the car and you're like, okay, this is not too bad. You're riding along, you're listening and asking questions to the officer and trying to understand the officer's perspective, how many years, their background, they're asking you questions, until they get a call. And they're running to that call, and now you're like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I don't do anything. I just sit in the car with my bullet, and you don't know, because again, the call may come in for a domestic issue, but it could be a lot more than that. The call may come in just to do a checkup, but it could be a lot more than that. And you never know. I'm not prepared. I just have a vest and I'm in the car. And that's when it became real. To me, that's when it became real, to understand the day-to-day that they all have to respond to those 100,000 calls on a day-to-day. They have no idea what they're going to be encountering in that moment. And it could be encountering someone who the leg was cut off because of a car accident. It could be encountering somebody who was stabbed or shot, or someone who is having a heart attack, or someone who, it could be anything and they don't know, and they're going there to provide that safety. So that is the opportunity that I think you've been able to understand and learn a little bit about who they are and what they do on a day-to-day basis. So I thank you for residents for willing to take that opportunity, willing to sacrifice your time to come and learn. And we want to do more of this. We want to make sure that we share with you who they are, what they do, so that you can be able to communicate that to others. And I was mentioned, we're in dire need of recruitment efforts to recruit new officers into the city. And we want younger folks, we want people of color, we want women, we want folks on all different backgrounds to be part of this team, and be part of the police force that really supports everything that we do here in our community. So again, based on my experience, I know the value they are to our community. I think you all know that, and you all appreciate that as well. That's why you're here, trying to learn and understand a little bit more about them. So I just want to thank you and congratulate you for achieving this 10 weeks, and the family members that are here. You also sacrificed not having them around for 10 weeks. Some of you were probably happy about it, but some of you, you got to understand and hear those stories as well. And maybe you want to come back and be a part of that academy as well. So I highly encourage you to get involved, ask the questions. The more you ask, the more we're able to communicate, the more you're able to learn, and then the more you're able to share with others as well. So again, congratulations, and thank you for doing a great job. And thank you to the department. Thank you to all the staff. They're the ones who do the day-to-day work to keep our city safe. So thank you.
Awesome.
I'd like to introduce District Attorney Early.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Manager. Thanks, Jerry. We don't have a good police department. We have a great police department.
Yeah.
And you've been through the training, and I say that for a bunch of reasons. And number one, it's one of the hardest jobs in the world right now. One of the hardest jobs, because it is. You ever get up in the morning and you see Tom Brady and Giselle, Bill Belichick doesn't get a job. It's all meant to get clicks. And it's all drama, and it's all looking to get you there. But also these cameras, wherever we go, I can't imagine being on camera 24 hours a day. I really can't. I am not perfect. And my wife could tell you, I am far from perfect. She had to put the kid on the bus today. It's the only thing I have to do in the morning, and I was late for that. But we do this, and when I thought about running for this job, my father said, Joe, well, you remember when you get in there, the first person they're going to knock is either the police officer or an AD, assistant district attorney. That's what people do. And in a time when we need the police more than ever, we hold them to a higher standard. That's why the numbers are down. It's hard to be a police officer right now. And I think as Publius Sarah said, it's easy to hold the helm when the seas are calm. The seas aren't calm. People aren't listening to a certain extent anymore. We're more polar opposites in this country than we've ever been in our lives. But what they do is listen. They practice the golden rule. When they come upon a scene, they treat people like family. When they have victims, someone who's gotten shot, someone who's a victim of domestic violence, when they see the kids at these scenes who are traumatized, they help. We're doing a program now with the PD called Handle with Care, where before a police officer might go into a scene of a domestic violence, a parent overdosing, something like that. Remember, Joe, there's kids here. And they might see these little shoes in a corner. And then all of a sudden they start thinking about it, and they take that home with them. Now what they can do when they see those shoes, and we're training for this, and training more and more, and that's how we get better. Call the school the next day with a 3-word message, Johnny Jones, handle with care. So where a child might have acted out, might have got suspended, might have got a detention, might not have been prepared for a test or fell asleep in class, now they get a warm hug. And how does that work? We know that working with the PD, that if we can get to these kids, if we don't get to the kids, 60% will end up in the criminal justice system. But by doing this, it's the greatest prevention work there is. And that's what they do, and the chiefs embraced it. They've embraced it. In many other programs, we're doing something on phones you'll hear about it in a little while. But these are the things. Sir Robert Peel said, the number one rule in policing is prevention. The number one rule is prevention. And just by way of a short story, and I've already spoken too long, I know how hard their job is because I was a victim once. And it was over at Ciao Bella Pizza. You can't make this up. And I used to carry my money with an elastic around, and I pull it out, and the kid looks at my wallet. Now, it's an NFL Sunday. It's a football game. It's a Sunday. I'm bringing pizzas home. Almost he looks at me, and I look at him like, what are you looking at? I'm not a tough guy. But he just walked over like this, and I see him looking all around. Next thing you know, they go, Joe, your pizzas are ready. I pull out my wallet. Boom! He grabbed my hand, and you always wonder what your reaction will be. I thought, my mother buys her food here. That's so big. So I just kind of leaned him into the wall. I could hear my father's voice saying, Joe, you're a public figure, you can't scream. And I said, I'm being robbed, I could use a hand. So the police showed up quickly after that. There happened to be a court officer in the front. And this is something I'll never forget as long as I live. We got him outside. The court officer, there was another guy who was a retired Cuban police officer who was standing on his ankles. He said, I'm hurting. And so he goes, I didn't rob you. I had a moment of doubt. I think you robbed me. Didn't you rob me? He said, you hurt me. The court officer says, put him in a 4-point. What's a 4-point? He goes, grab his right leg, Joe. I was there with my credit cards and cash. I was mad because he got to him before I did. But then he was there, and I was so mad. Human emotion, I furious. I wanted to take his face and plant it in the ground. And I thought to myself, how much restraint it takes on behalf of a police officer. It didn't hurt that when I looked up in the restaurant, everyone was going like this, looking outside. But how much restraint they have to do in their jobs. And I wouldn't have known this but for the fact that I was in Chow Bell and someone tried to rob the district attorney. And if they wrote a book or I wrote a book, the name would be, you can't make this up. So you've got this experience now. It gives you better understanding. It puts you in line when you're having a conversation with someone as to what they do, why they do it. I'll tell you why they do it, because they care. They're in a profession where they care about people. And, you know, they'll tell you. They get up out of bed, they come to work, they help people, and they make a buck doing it. They're successes. They're all successes. And the other thing is, now that you've seen it, you know, we go alone, we go fast. We go together, we go further. And we go further as a city because of our Worcester Police Department. And I applaud you for what you did getting involved. Life is about showing up. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will not introduce myself. I believe I was already introduced. Prior to reading the names, we have them in alphabetical order. We'd like you to please proceed to the front of the room. Officer Ingo will hand you your certificate and a little token of our appreciation. And then, obviously, our dignitaries would like to give you the greeting of the evening. I'd like, prior to say a special thank you to the city. You told me the name.
Yeah, Jessica Cable Services.
City Cable Services for dedicating their time, helping us videotaping and audio taping. All right, so if I say your name incorrectly, I will not, I promise. First person we have is Ms. Pamela Barnes.
You're first, right?
We have Mr. Valentine Bellatrupel.
Thank you.
Mr. Samuel Bowen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Ms. Michelle Bruno. Mr. Michael Carbonell. Mr. John Cole.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Joel Cutler.
Are you going up to Denver?
I don't know if I want us to go up. I actually want to bring my daughter.
Do with the registry. I got my weapon systems. Okay. I got you.
Mr. Charles Hopkins. Thanks, sir. Miss Hannah Clapper. Mr. Noah Clapper. Ms. Corrales Masonette. Mr. Bernard Melican. Thank you very much. Ms. Falone Moja. Mr. Santiago Nieves Jr. Ms. Marianne Olenek.
Thank you.
Mr. Jose Perez. Thanks, sir. Mr. Jean Carlos Quinones. Thanks, sir. Ms. Nashali Quinones. Mr. Mark Shear. Miss Ellen Schmitz. Miss Alicia Torres. Mr. Matt Villamino.
You got it. Good job. Thank you.
Miss Jennifer Visvaras. Miss April Williams. Mr. Raymond Vavanyanje. That being said, there were some names that couldn't be with us tonight, this evening, for various reasons they called and left mention. Is there anyone that snuck in without my knowledge? I believe that is the graduating class 1123 of the Worcester Police Department Civilian Police Academy.